9,000 RPM. Let that sink in for a moment. 9,000 revolutions per minute from a naturally aspirated production engine sitting in your driveway. No turbos, no superchargers, just pure mechanical symphony, reaching speeds that would make most engines scatter their internals across the pavement. In 1999, Honda unleashed the F20C, a 2.0-liter inline-4 that would hold the record for the highest specific power output of any mass-production naturally aspirated engine for 11 years, producing 123.5 horsepower per liter. It wasn't until Ferrari brought out the 458 Italia in 2010 that anyone could even come close. This is the story of an engine that defied logic, an engineering masterpiece that proved Honda wasn't just building economy cars, they were building dreams that screamed at red lines most manufacturers wouldn't dare approach. The year was 1999, and Honda had something to celebrate. 50 years of innovation, of pushing boundaries, of refusing to play it safe. They needed a car worthy of this milestone, something that would capture the essence of what Honda stood for. The S2000 was introduced to celebrate Honda's 50th anniversary, carrying the spirit of the company's racing heritage in every component. But this wasn't just another sports car with a tuned engine. This was a statement, a declaration that Honda could build something truly special. The name itself tells part of the story, S2000. Following in the footsteps of the legendary S500, S600, and S800 roadsters from the 1960s, this new flagship would carry that racing DNA forward. But where those classics had modest displacement and output, the S2000 would be different. It would be savage.
Honda engineers didn't start with an existing engine and modify it. They built the F20C almost from scratch, borrowing technology directly from their racing programs. This wasn't a part spin special. This was a ground-up assault on what was thought possible from a 2-liter naturally aspirated engine. The aluminum block stood 224 millimeters tall, with an 84 millimeter piston stroke, and featured fiber-reinforced metal cylinder liners, the same material found in racing engines. These FRM sleeves allowed the cylinder walls to be incredibly thin while maintaining strength, reducing weight, and improving heat dissipation. But here's where it gets interesting. Honda equipped the F20C with forged aluminum pistons, something that had never been installed in a Honda street car before. The pistons were coated with molybdenum disulfide to reduce friction, and they rode on lightweight connecting rods that were just 153 millimeters long. Every component was designed with one goal: survive at speeds that would destroy lesser engines. With its relatively long stroke of 84 millimeters, the F20C achieved a mean piston speed of 25.2 meters per second at redline, higher than any other production car at the time. To put that in perspective, the pistons are traveling faster than a major league fastball, while changing directions thousands of times per second. The crankshaft was forged steel, supported by 5 main bearings, and held in place by a ladder frame main bearing stiffener that added rigidity to the bottom end. Honda even borrowed single-valve spring design from their racing programs and used a narrow 25.5-degree angle for the intake and exhaust valves to improve airflow.
Now, Vtec wasn't new to Honda by 1999. They've been using it since 1989 in the B-Series engines, giving drivers that addictive kick when the secondary cam profile engaged. But the F20C's Vtec system was different. The F20C used a coaxial rocker arm design that lowered valve train friction, with Vtec switching over to its more aggressive valve lift at 5,850 RPM. Unlike modern systems with variable cam phasing that continuously adjust timing, the F20C used 2 distinct cam lobe profiles, one for efficiency at low RPM and one that unleashed hell at high RPM. Both intake and exhaust camshafts were equipped with their own Vtec system and used roller followers to further reduce friction. A timing chain, not a belt, drove an intermediate gear that operated the camshafts, eliminating one more potential failure point at astronomical engine speeds. The stock camshaft specifications reveal Honda's intentions: 300 degrees of duration on the intake, 298 on the exhaust, with lift measurements of 12.65 millimeters and 11.66 millimeters respectively. These weren't economy car numbers. These were race-bred specifications in a production engine. The results speak for themselves. The Japanese domestic market F20C, running an 11.7:1 compression ratio, produced 247 horsepower at 8,600 RPM. That's 123.5 horsepower per liter, and it held that specific output record for over a decade. For the US and European markets, compression was dropped to 11.0:1, yielding 237 horsepower at 8,300 RPM and 153 pound-feet of torque at 7,500 RPM. Yes, you read that right. Peak torque didn't arrive until 7,500 RPM. This engine had to be wrung out to give you everything it had. The red line sat at 8,800 RPM, with a fuel cut at 9,000 RPM. To most drivers used to V8s or turbocharged engines, the F20C felt hollow below 6,000 RPM. Vtec actuated around 5,500 to 6,000 RPM, depending on ECU triggers, and that's when the character of the engine completely transformed. The intake plenum was designed with minimal volume for instant throttle response, and until 2004, the engine came with a lightweight 6.4 kilogram flywheel that allowed the engine to rev with frightening speed. Honda even fitted a 4-2-1 exhaust manifold with 36mm intake ports and 21mm exhaust ports to help the engine breathe deeply. The F20C won Ward's 10 Best Engines Awards in 2000 and 2001, and the International Engine of the Year category for 1.8 to 2.2-liter engines 5 times consecutively from 2000 to 2004. Even Francesco Moratini, Ferrari's chief engineer, admitted in 2017 that the F20C was the non-Ferrari engine he admired most. By 2004, Honda had listened to feedback from American customers. While enthusiasts loved the high-revving nature of the F20C, many drivers found the lack of low-end torque frustrating for daily driving. The solution was the F22C1. Honda stroked the engine from 84mm to 90.7mm, increasing displacement by 160 cc's to 2.2 liters. This brought total displacement to 2,157 cc's, creating the F22C1. Power remained at 240 horsepower, but torque increased from 155 pound-feet at 7,500 RPM to 162 pound-feet at 6,500 RPM, a much more usable power band. The red line dropped to 8,200 RPM due to the longer stroke, and Vtec engagement was raised to 6,000 RPM. The transmission gear ratios were also revised, with the first 5 gears shortened and 6th lengthened to maintain performance while improving highway cruising. The F22C1 was initially exclusive to the North American market for 2004 and 2005. Then expanded to Japan in 2006, where it produced 239 horsepower. Outside of Japan and the United States, the F20C continued as the only available engine through 2009. While the F20C was an achievement in naturally aspirated performance, its true potential revealed itself when forced induction entered the picture. The engine's forged internals, robust bottom end, and excellent flowing cylinder head made it surprisingly capable of handling boost. With a supercharger kit, the F20C could reliably produce around 300 horsepower on stock internals. But add a turbocharger and things get serious. 400 horsepower became easily achievable with a proper turbo setup, and the stock block could handle 600 to 700 horsepower with appropriate tuning and supporting modifications. One notable build featured a Garrett G35 1050 turbocharger, pushing over 750 horsepower at 7,200 RPM on a relatively stock F20C engine with only ARP head studs and Supertech valve springs and retainers. At 24 psi of boost, the engine proved that Honda's engineering margins were far more conservative than anyone realized.
Companies like Vtec engineered supercharger kits that added an extra 50 horsepower per liter, bringing power levels to the 300 wheel horsepower marker. The aftermarket embraced the F20C with everything from mild bolt-on upgrades to full race-spec builds. For those chasing maximum naturally aspirated power, builds exceeding 340 horsepower were possible, with extensive headwork, aggressive camshafts, individual throttle bodies, and engine management tuning. These builds often rev to 11,000 RPM or beyond, though reliability at those speeds required significant investment.
The S2000's competition pedigree speaks volumes about the F20C's capabilities. In the Super Taikyu series, the S2000 won numerous championships in the ST4 class and scored victories at the Tokachi 24 Hours race. It also claimed class wins at the Nürburgring 24 Hours and victories at the SCCA National Championship runoffs. But it was in time attack where the S2000 truly dominated. In 2008, an S2000 modified by Top Fuel set the lap record for rear-wheel drive cars at Tsukuba Circuit, holding it for 3 years. With further modifications, the car set tuning car lap records at Fuji Speedway, Suzuka Circuit, Okayama International Circuit, and Autopolis in 2014 and 2015. The Top Fuel S2000 Tsukuba lap time of 51.762 seconds, set in 2016, ranks among the fastest ever recorded for time attack cars. This particular build produced up to 1,000 horsepower with the help of a GTX 3582R turbo and nitrous system, paired with a Hollinger 6-speed sequential transmission. Companies like Evasive Motorsports built their reputation on S2000 time attack success. In 2022, with driver Dai Yoshihara behind the wheel, an Evasive S2000 set a new lap record at Buttonwillow Raceway with a time of 1 minute, 41 seconds, 553 milliseconds. The car featured extensive aerodynamic modifications, advanced suspension setup, and a boosted F20C making well over 400 horsepower.
No engine is perfect, and the F20C had its issues. The timing chain tensioner could develop extraneous noise during cold starts, typically appearing after 70,000 to 100,000 miles. The solution was straightforward: replace the tensioner, but it was a common enough complaint that owners learned to live with it. More serious was the valve retainer problem. Valve retainers could become destroyed under oil starvation or excessive RPM, potentially causing catastrophic engine damage. Honda redesigned the retainers and valve locks for 2003 Plus models, and it's recommended to upgrade earlier engines with these improved parts, especially for modified applications. Oil consumption was considered normal for the F20C, sometimes reaching 1 quart per 600 miles during spirited driving. This wasn't a flaw, it was the price of admission for an engine designed to operate at race car RPM levels. Owners learned to check their oil religiously and keep a spare quart in the trunk. The lack of low-end torque wasn't really a problem, it was a characteristic. The F20C demanded to be driven hard, rewarding those willing to keep it above 6,000 RPM with a soundtrack and acceleration that few 4 cylinders could match. For those unwilling to row through gears and keep the engine singing, it felt gutless. But for those who understood its nature, it was intoxicating.
The F20C remains one of the few Honda 4-cylinder engines designed to sit longitudinally for rear-wheel drive. The compact and lightweight engine, weighing approximately 148 kilograms, 326 pounds, was mounted entirely behind the front axle, allowing the S2000 to achieve a perfect 50-50 weight distribution. This front mid-engine layout, combined with Honda's X-Bone frame design and independent double wishbone suspension at all 4 corners, created a chassis that felt alive at the limit. The high X-Bone frame gave the S2000 better torsional rigidity than many closed-top sports cars, with the backbone running through the center of the cockpit between the seats. The 6-speed manual transmission that came bolted to every F20C was widely regarded as one of the best ever produced. Short throws, precise engagement, and a shifter position perfectly within reach made rowing through the gears a mechanical meditation. Paired with a Torsen limited slip differential, the drivetrain was as engaging as the engine itself. Production of the F20C ended in 2009 when Honda ceased S2000 production. The S2000 was never offered with any other engine, and the F20C was never used in any other Honda product. They were inseparable, each one designed specifically for the other. Just 66,860 Honda S2000s were sold in the United States during the car's 9-year production run. For comparison, Honda sold 3.1 million Civics in the same period. This rarity has helped the S2000 maintain strong values, with clean examples commanding premium prices in today's market. The F20C proved something fundamental about engineering philosophy. In an era where turbochargers and forced induction were becoming the norm, Honda showed that there was still magic to be found in naturally aspirated design. They proved that with enough attention to detail, enough willingness to push boundaries, and enough racing-derived technology, you could build an engine that achieved the seemingly impossible. It held the specific output record for naturally aspirated engines for 11 years, beaten only when Ferrari released the 458 Italia, and even then, only by 1 horsepower per liter. Think about that. A $30,000 Roadster held a record that stood against every supercar manufacturer in the world until Ferrari, with all their Formula One technology and unlimited budget, barely edged it out. The F20C represents a moment in time that we'll likely never see again. Modern emissions regulations, fuel economy standard, and the relentless march toward turbocharging have made engines like this economically impossible to produce. But for those lucky enough to own one, or for those of us who remember hearing one screaming toward its 9,000 RPM fuel cut for the first time, the F20C remains a testament to what's possible when engineers are given the freedom to build something truly special. It wasn't the most powerful engine, it wasn't the most efficient, it demanded skill and commitment from its driver. But it was honest, it was mechanical, it was pure. 9,000 RPM, 123.5 horsepower per liter, 11 years at the top. The F20C didn't just rev past logic, it rewrote it entirely. This is why we love engines. This is why we build cars. And this is why the Honda F20C will forever be remembered as one of the greatest 4-cylinder engines ever created.